Thank you so much. We know it's been a long day, but we are thrilled that you're here with us. This is going to be a terrific panel. We are joined by Ms. Angela Woods from ESPN. Hello. We have Tara from the NBA and Eric Reed from Verizon. So I'm going to take a seat. Hopefully we won't
rock the chair.
Yes, this is great. Well, first of all, these are three amazing professionals. I've had the opportunity to work with them through my time in sports, but more importantly, I think they'll be able to provide some interesting perspective to bring everything we've talked about today together. So what we will be discussing, as you've heard spoken about many times today, is why. Why do we give? What are we giving? How are we giving? And perhaps most importantly, how can your organization, if you're part of a nonprofit, a foundation, or government agency, align with these incredible brands in order to maximize your impact as well? So we all believe together in this movement, in LA 84 and the equality in play for all movement. It's something we grew up benefiting from. It's something our children are growing up benefiting from. But perhaps most importantly, all of us are in a position to create more outreach opportunities for young people and more opportunities for them to play. So we have different lenses here. Ms. Angela is coming from the vantage point of media, visibility, and how to storytell. I might be biased, but ESPN is clearly the leader in storytelling around sports. Everything that's been produced makes me, what did somebody say earlier, get humidity in my eyes, but I'll just admit I cry. I love the storytelling side of it, and that's really a lot of Angela's work. Tara is coming at it from the NBA, from a league perspective, and having been on a club perspective most of my career, but also with an international nonprofit, Special Olympics, I know that there is some pull back and forth between leagues and clubs and then the players themselves. So we'll get to discuss that a bit. And then Eric Reed. Eric's with Verizon. It's a small startup cell phone company you may have heard of. They may or may not have a 5G product right now, according to his lapel pin. But
we have 5G service.
Oh, excuse me, yes. But Eric not only provides some terrific cellular capabilities, but their philanthropic outreach is tremendous. So with that, I'd really like to jump into the why. People will say to you, why do you do corporate social responsibility, right? Now, the obvious answer, it's the right thing to do. Now, it is the right thing to do, and I feel like that's starting from zero. But what we want to get into today is not just that it's the right thing to do, but that, as ServiceNow says, we make the world of work better for people, but we're also looking to make the world work better for people. And that truly is aligned with our business operations. So, Angela, I'm going to start with you and just ask you to tell us a little bit about why it's important to ESPN.
Hi, everybody. This light is blaring in my eyes, so I'm trying to see, but really can't.
Right.
So I'll talk a little bit about, from an ESPN perspective, I think for us it goes back to culture. So when we were founded, it'll be 40 years next year. So still in infancy stage, if you will. The company was founded on a service of culture. So that's been embedded and ingrained in what we do from a company positioning, but also from the culture and the service of the organization, our employees, and everything that we do. So we really see it intrinsic to our values and core to what we want to deliver to our fans. Our mission statement says that we want to serve sports fans anytime, anywhere. And we truly believe that beyond just the media networks and the platforms we have, but how that is externally exhibited through our giving, through our volunteerism, and other work that we do, that it is intrinsic in who we are, and we believe that it is culturally what we should be doing. And I think the bigger part of it is also, hopefully most of you know, we're owned by the Walt Disney Company. So if nobody better, greater to exhibit the core values around being of service and giving back. Certainly that's been embedded into us as one of the business segments. But again, it goes back to really wanting to serve our sports fan and really believing that that's the expectation, that's what they require, and that's what we want to be able to do and deliver not only through the on-air product, but in all the other services that we provide every day.
You guys do such a great job of getting those stories under the helmet, as we called them when I was in the NFL, and just kind of looking at who the people are behind those great moments that we all enjoy on the court, on the field, or on the pitch. Tara, building off of that, the NBA is incredible in terms of their social responsibility. Why do you do it?
Sure. One of the things we say often at the league is that it's in our DNA. I think we feel that it's our responsibility to give back to the communities that to support us, and it's something that we've done. If you look at the history of our league, if you look at all our players, owners, on both the men's side and the women's side, it's something that is ingrained in sports. And you know, we talk a lot about the fact that sports has the power to change the world. It has the power to unite. It has the power to break down barriers. You know, you put a basketball in someone's hand and put them on a court with someone else, all of a sudden, you know, there's equality. You have a love of this game, and you're all working together as a team to complete something. And I think that's essentially what giving back is. And so we feel the responsibility. We have a responsibility here in the US. We have 25% essentially of our players born outside of the US. And so we feel that we have this major responsibility as a sports league to give back, to unite, and kind of show everyone that hard work and determination and a little help from somebody can really lead you on a great path.
Along those lines, Eric, your business is connecting people.
That's right.
So maybe build off of that and tell us a little bit about why Verizon does social impact work.
Yeah, I got 5G a million ways, so I could probably tell you that. But you know, Verizon is a technology company. We're very excited about bringing 5G to Los Angeles in addition to Sacramento, Houston, and Indianapolis. And when you think about those 4 cities, they're all NFL and NBA and WNBA cities. But you know, when we think about connecting people, connecting communities, you know, what's the true value proposition for us? And so when we think about our, you know, philanthropic giving and, you know, corporate responsibility, we really wanted to, you know, extend outside of just being a technology leader. And so Rose Kirk, who is our Chief Corporate Responsibility Officer, she said, how do we do that? How do we think outside the box? And so she said, we could do energy sustainability. We could do healthcare. But what about education? Technology connects people, but education really connects people as well. So how do we marry the two together? And so when people think about Verizon as a technology company, we really want them to think about how are we connecting our communities? How are we connecting our children? How are we creating a pipeline for the students and futures of tomorrow that will be our future engineers and technologists and innovators and dreamers and all that great stuff? So, you know, it's been pretty awesome to work for a dynamic company. I mean, I love my job. I get to hang out with folks like you all up here. You know, ESPN being our content partner, you know, Tara being one of our league partners, and of course ServiceNow being one of our partners as well. But it's really about how do we extend the value proposition outside of the traditional model when people thought of connecting communities as a one-to-one proposition, but how do we do it as a one-to-many proposition? So it's not just working with you or working with you, Tara, or working with Angela. It's all 4 of us working together to enhance all of our brands and all of our standing in the community. So I'm just really excited about how, you know, we're bringing 5G, we're bringing new enhancements around education, and we're getting people to think differently about Verizon as a company and what does that mean in terms of you know, creating that STEM pipeline of kids that will hopefully be working as our next generation of engineers and technologists of the future for America.
And it's interesting because what you're talking about there and what all of you were mentioning was that purpose-driven, impact-aligned. Yep. We had a panel earlier today that talked about metrics and what metrics mean. And frankly, if you haven't seen, there's a great TED Talk on measuring metrics in philanthropy and how it is so different from measuring metrics in a traditional sense of economic vitality and sustainability. Because you can't measure the impact on a child as easily as you can, you know, how much money you've made or something to that effect. But along those lines, as we're all
things that they also care about, that we can come together in events or in focusing on a nonprofit or around a cause to be able to collectively, because I think it's much more meaningful. And it also then gives us the opportunity to use our platform for storytelling. Right. So I think what we always say to nonprofits, yes, we have the capacity to fund different organizations that meet and align with our focus areas, but I think where our greatest core strength is our ability to then actually really be able to amplify your story and tell and talk about the cause and the purpose of what you're trying to do.
And it's interesting because we were all here for the All-Star game just a few months ago. And Tara, I'd love for you to talk about what the lasting legacy. There's a moment in time, but then there's a legacy that you can leave aligned with the storytelling aspect.
Sure. I think one of the benefits of having all-star games for the NBA is that we get to go into markets where our teams are, and obviously Los Angeles is a market where you have two fundamentally wonderful teams out in the community with both the Lakers and the Clippers. One thing that we added to the game this year, we changed our format. We decided it wasn't going to be East versus West. We were going to have captains. And when we did that, we also decided each of these teams was going to play for a charity. Thank you. I loved it too. And as part of that charity, the money we gave $500,000. The winning team's charity benefited from $350,000, and then the other team, I'm not going to call them a losing team, $150,000. But we said these have to be Los Angeles charities, so they could be a national one, but that money needed to stay within the city. So that was kind of our lasting legacy to that city. Is we're going to come in. You all know it's a wonderful day. We do a ton of service. We're going and doing different community projects, but we left two organizations in Los Angeles. The thing I liked about it too was one of them was After School All-Stars, which is a national organization but has a very strong base here. And then the other was a smaller LA group. I know she was in the room earlier today, but Brotherhood Crusade. And so it really told the story of two, almost a Goliath, if you will, and then a local partner having the opportunity to show what they are, that players picked those foundations, they decided who they wanted to play for. And then when we left, they had the ability to enhance their programming within the city. And it's something we're going to do in Charlotte this year. It's sometimes when we do things, we do it again and we do it better. And I'm just really excited to grow upon that. And talking about what we've all done together, when you think about the NBA, we always say we're a basketball league, and we find wonderful nonprofits. We have great sponsors that come in and work with us on programs, and we decide to do a community program together. We have incredible media partners who work with us on our Special Olympics Unified game, and we blow it out because of ESPN's commitment to us and our commitment to Special Olympics and this wonderful circle that we have. And so it's great when you can be on a stage with people from all different realms and really have one driven purpose. And I think high tide rises all boats. So when we're together, we're able to push forward a little bit more.
And just to add to that, I will say this doesn't just happen in the U.S. So a lot of the leagues have games that they take outside the U.S., right? So this year we have broadcasting. We have an NFL game coming up in Mexico City in November and a couple of NBA games in December in Mexico, right? So we have an office there. So we have an opportunity to give back and support that local community, one of which was impacted last year with the earthquake. So it gives us an opportunity,
100%.
even outside of the U.S., to come together between our network and the leagues to say, how can we give back to this community that clearly was in dire need of some assistance? So I just wanted to extend what Tara was talking about, because it does really extend beyond the United States.
Eric, your impact.
Yeah, I would just add, technology doesn't see gender. And I think about the remarks that Liz Farrow made earlier this morning, talking about female athletes. Well, she said that they're athletes. Let's think about them as athletes. And so, our Chief Technology Officer, Nikki Palmer, she's a female engineer, but I think of her as an engineer. And even though we do need, and what we've been doing a lot of outreach on the STEM side in terms of encouraging more young girls and women to become engineers and technologists, because there's just a ton of technology jobs that are out there. I think there's 4 million open jobs that go unfulfilled because we just don't have the talent pipeline there. But when I think about, again, the technology being gender agnostic, it's amazing to me how when we bring in the Clippers Foundation, we did some work with them in addition with the Brotherhood Crusade, and brought a number of young folks up to our Innovation Center up in San Francisco. Yeah. Next thing you know, I'm thinking, well, wait a second, why are we not working with the LA Sparks as well to make sure that, again, that the technology, again, being gender agnostic, they need to be up here as well. So we work very closely with the LA Sparks to make sure that we have exposure to many of the young, talented ladies that, these are careers that you could pursue that are very innovative, very dynamic, and we want to encourage folks that are not only female, but people of color, to recognize that, you know, there's so many jobs, there's so much opportunity out there. And look, I'm a huge representation of that. I'm not an engineer by training, but I went back to school, got a master's in telecommunications management, and got to understand the basics of how the science, the engineering, the technology allows me to articulate when I go to negotiate deals or to speak with the city council. I can speak very intelligently about how our networks work, how they connect communities, how it provides a value proposition for kids that might not be exposed. They may just say, hey, look, I just want to be a basketball player. I just want to be a football player. It's like, well, wait a second. There's technology that's involved with what the players on the field or on the court are doing, the data analytics piece, the analytics piece. You know, these are things that if you don't become the next great basketball or football player or athlete, you still can have an impact on the game, but you better have a rich background in technology in order to do that.
Sure. But you bring up a great point with the equalization. Yeah. I often think of my son's soccer team. Yeah. They're U8. There are 12 boys. They speak 8 different languages. And when they heard the final whistle blow at their big tournament last year, and they ran together, they're hugging, they're jumping, they're celebrating a moment together, because really all they cared about was, if you kick me the ball, if you pass me the ball, I'm clearly not that well versed in soccer, if you pass me the ball, will I be able to score? If I pass you the ball, are you going to maximize that opportunity and get us to that ultimate goal, which is really at the end of that journey, technology, the same thing. I also think, as we've talked about different types of learning styles, different types of abilities today, esports is another platform where it will be able to be more inclusive as we look at people who are in different areas of the spectrum for autism and other types of abilities. Sometimes that's your superpower as well.
That's right.
With all of that, would you each touch a little bit on how your organization, either collaboratively or individually, is working towards creating those bridges for young people of all different abilities, backgrounds, and socioeconomic levels to play?
Sure, I'll give a couple of examples. So as we look at, we have a couple of key focus areas, one of which is called Leadership Through Sports. And part of what we address in this focus area is really about inclusion and diversity and inclusion and those inequalities. So whether it's the work that we do around ensuring girls of color are recruited and retained in playing sports because they drop out at a higher propensity than their counterparts do through our work with Women's Sports Foundation, or some of the work that we do, as Joanne mentioned, with Special Olympics to make sure that athletes with intellectual disabilities have the same opportunities to play a sport as those who don't, to the work that we're doing with Major League Baseball. I think Nicole's here from the Dodgers Foundation. Some of the work we're doing around bullying and the initiative with Fred Hayden and the organization No Bully, around an issue that many of the young athletes who are trying to play sports have at one point in time, 1 in 3 have faced some sense of some form of bullying in their lives. So we really want to make sure that with the programs that we are funding, it really is helping to address and meet those young people in under-resourced, underserved communities who would not have opportunity to have access to that sport or to that program if we were not funding it. That's really important to us. So it's making sure that those young people who don't necessarily have the opportunity, because it's not always a level playing field, that they are the inequities that we want to make sure we address. If it's around ethnicity, if it's around their ability through having a disability or through other social issues and ills that they may address. And I will say that we look at it through that lens, not only in the programs that we fund in the US, but we also do our giving globally in markets around the world where we have placement. So we're doing a program internationally called Built to Play with an organization Beyond Sport, and I think they're here in the room, where we're going into communities around the world that are in dire situations. We've gone to from Bogota, Colombia to Bangalore, India, where we are building these play spaces, safe spaces to play for kids who might not have a safe space to play within a 15 or 20-mile radius of where they live. But beyond just providing the space to play, we're empowering and enabling communities because we're leaving behind an NGO that's actually going to go out and bring to life these life skills employment training that we're doing. I think one of the programs, one of those that I'm most proud of is the one we're doing in India, where girls typically drop out in the 6th or 7th grade because they're married off at the age of 12 in India. And this program that we're working with Magic Bus in that market is working to ensure that young girls are staying in and getting their education. And we're going into these homes and talking to the parents about how important it is to ensure that they also maintain their education. So for us, it really is in the programs we do. Sport is just the catalyst to convene people, but for us, it's the solve that comes out of bringing them together that we really want to make sure that our programs seek to address.
You know, I think the breadth of all the work that we do really speaks to that. But since I'm here representing basketball, I think if you look at what we're doing with our junior NBA at the league, what junior NBA does is it teaches the values and the fundamentals of the game. And so it's for all kids. And when I say that, you know, you look at the partner organizations that we have, it is for young boys. We just launched last week a campaign called Her Time to Play. We have always had girls in that program, but we're trying to build it up, allow girls to have more opportunities. You look at Special Olympics, they've been a partner on the junior NBA side for a very long time. We have a tremendous amount of wheelchair basketball leagues in our junior NBA. It is global. And what it does is really break it down, and so that what we're talking about is how to be a team player. Here's the basics of basketball. These are the types of things. This is the type of person you want to be. Here's how a team sport teaches you how to communicate. We're also starting to add mindfulness and wellness into all of this because we're realizing the kids are anxious and they don't know how to handle things. And so allowing them to have opportunities to take a step back, to have a moment, to meditate on the court. And we're also working with coaches. I know the Positive Coaching Alliance is here. I heard them call themselves out earlier today, but working with them, working with A Call to Men, with Athlete Ally, trying to teach our coaches how to make sure that every child that comes onto their court feels like they can bring their whole selves, that they're not being, inadvertently discriminated against. And so I think using this sport, as I said before, something that is a uniter, to kind of allow people to feel like they're a part of something. The minute they walk on the court and they hold a basketball, that's how we're bringing that all into play at the NBA, WNBA,
Unified
G League,
sports
and the
with
2K
Special
League.
Olympics.
So yes, 100%.
Right, breaks down the barriers.
Yeah, I was just going to say, look, technology is inclusive, and Nicole's point earlier today, she was saying, why do you have analysts? And well, these analysts, they're a big part of making decisions, on the baseball field, on the baseball diamond, on the football field, on the basketball court. So it's huge. And so a lot of our local partnerships right now, which is interesting, getting back to my one-to-many message that I was stating earlier, working with the Brotherhood Crusade and with the Clippers Foundation, it was great that Chris Paul decided to have an immersive technology lab right there in Crenshaw to bring technology and resources to kids that normally would not be exposed to that. You talked about esports, the work that we're doing with Renata and Oscar about and bringing in the Electronic Software Association as well. How do we, again, talk about technology in sports, particularly esports, and what's that intersection look like? And then lastly, the work that, again, we're doing with the WNBA and the Sparks. These sort of one-to-many relationships are so critically important because that's what our communities ask for. That's what they want. They don't want the old grin and grip, have a photo op, and have the big check. They really want to know, what are you really doing in my community to uplift us? And Los Angeles is such a great place for all this because you got the Super Bowl that's coming in, Super Bowl 56 that's coming in 2022. Hope I have that right. You got the Olympics coming in 28. So there's going to be a real need for innovators and for this incubation of all these great minds, young minds, that are going to build the analytics, build the big data, so to speak, so that not only the performance on the court and on the field is going to be at an optimum level, but also just moving people around the city, the smart transportation, the smart lighting, all of those great things that Mayor Garcetti is trying to encourage and bring investment to the city.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we think about technology as not just to help sports move forward, but also as that career path for the kid who loves sports,
That's right.
but maybe has more aptitude in math.
That's right.
This is one of my favorite stories. There was a kid came to a Warriors game. He saw that I had a small, shiny object on my finger, and he said, "Who gave you that?" And I said, "Well, I earned it." And then we started talking about how you could get different pathways. I asked him what his favorite subject was in school. He replied that it was math. And I pointed to this guy, Sammy Galfand, who worked for the Warriors, who rebounded during every practice for Steph and Clay and others who don't need last names. Sammy's not that much taller than me. I pretend I'm 5'4". I might be 5'3". But Sammy was out there on the court with them rebounding. He was there because he was doing the analytics and he was using math. He was using his mind. So I pointed to Sammy and I said, that guy's on his way to his 3rd championship ring from using his mind. And the kid was like, whoa, so I can get a ring through math? Yes, you can. So it's just reminding, I think, particularly for some of us who are women, former athletes, we know there aren't as many pathways yet for us to go and make a career from sports, but yet I wouldn't give back a single minute of the time I participated in sports and who it helped me to become. So as we kind of go along those, what do you want from organizations when they're coming to you and they're looking to benefit from some of the ample resources that you have? They're ample, but they're still limited. Tara, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Sure. So I think,
Don't ask me.
yeah,
I'm skipping.
I think from our perspective, obviously, if you're coming to the league, we are a national and a global entity. So it's incredibly important that for us, there is reach across or in most of the markets. That being said, if we do think it's wonderful, we will likely pass you on to a team if it is something a little bit more provincial. I think an organization that has capacity to be built, has a real understanding of kind of what your mission is. I'm always really impressed by somebody who'll come in and say, this is who we are and this is what we do. And it's 1 or 2 things and it's really well and you know what you're doing, as opposed to, this is who we are, these are the kind of things we want to do, and then casting a very wide net. The work that we do is really done by these amazing nonprofits and somebody that can be an expert in something very specific. And to your point, while KPIs are hard in this industry, having something that you can point to, success, measured success and sustainable success is a good thing for people to want to invest in. Sometimes it can be something that is just a really wonderful idea and you're passionate about. But I think doing your homework, understanding who you're sitting in front of, kind of what they're able to give to you, is incredibly important, 100%, and understanding your boundaries and where you feel like you can push and where you want to stay set in and say, this is who we are, this is what we want to do.
Doing your research, I think that's critically important. Eric, you and I had so many back and forth Niners and Warriors about how Verizon would engage and what you were able to sponsor, what you wanted to sponsor. Why do you say yes? Why do you say no?
Yeah, I mean, look, when these opportunities come up, and I guess I should give us a little bit of background. So I lead our foundation for 18 states, including California. So I'm always in a rental car or on a plane or a train or a scooter sometimes. But it's amazing to me how, when I talk about being dynamic, I still get nonprofits that just ask me for free self-service or for the next iPhone. And while it might be cute, it doesn't move the ball, it doesn't move the needle. I want dynamic partnerships that will look at where we are today and where we want to be down the road. And so if you're into STEM, if you're into education, if you're into sports, how do we marry those 3 and create, again, a shared success for all of us? So that it's not just a grin and grip moment and I'm just dropping off a check. That's not the type of relationship that I want. I want a relationship much like the Brotherhood Crusade, much like TeleQ, the East Los Angeles Community Union, DIY Girls, a organization that supports Latino girls that want to pursue careers in technology. I want folks that are going to come to the table and say, Verizon provided us resources so that our young girls and our young boys have a platform to be able to learn and engage and take that success, bring it back to their communities and say, wow, our community is actually is thriving, it's doing much better, it's brought in more business, it's created more economic development opportunities that weren't there before. And so having that sort of foresight or that vision that will get me excited, that will get our company excited, that will create shared success, that is what I really look for. I want something that's dynamic and different, and it's just not going to be the same year after year after year. That gets old. It's just
and you're
stale.
thinking about the moments.
That's right.
In working with professional athletes, one thing I found was that there were a lot of organizations who would call up and ask for whatever your biggest name star was. They wanted them to participate. And I would often throw back, why? Why that particular athlete? The ones that really resonated with me were the organizations that came and said, I know that athlete overcame this particular challenge or has succeeded in this particular way, has a learning difference, whatever it is. I'd love for him to come speak from his passion point. I always pointed here, and somebody told me it's like your chi or your center, but that's really where we all know that. We know that feeling when somebody asks you for something and it feels right.
Well, those are the stories that are most authentic. And I think that's what everybody wants in our communities, too. They just don't want to hear about Verizon technology company, but what are you doing about it? Like, are you benefiting our community? Are you creating that shared success? And so you're exactly spot on. You know, we want the question to be, how can we create a dynamic partnership that's going to create extra value proposition for not just me, but for the many in the community?
And I'm ending with Angela on purpose because just the story part of this.
I'll start with what you don't want to ask me for, because we always get this. Can you run our PSA spot, really? Let's be a little bit more creative than sending me your PSA to ask if we'd run it during Sports Center or during college football or whatever. Yes, we can do that, and that's really easy to do, but you can well imagine with millions of nonprofits in the country, if we tried to do that for everybody, we wouldn't have airtime to sell to our advertisers or sponsors. I think for us, it really is similar to what Tara was talking about, programs that can deliver scale, that are national for us, because we are a global company. If they are outside of the US, that's helpful as well. But again, not to say that we don't support regional, local programs, but really for us, it's the ability to be able to replicate a lot of the programming across the country, so that as we go into market with the leagues and other things that we're doing, it makes sense for us and it makes sense for our business. So it's the scale, it's the capacity of the program, it's certainly the impact of the program, and it is your uniqueness. So if I'm already funding something in that area or in that vein, tell me how your organization and your work, your program is going to differentiate that work that I'm already doing, or how it's going to lift it in a way that's different from what we're already doing. Or if you're filling a gap or need that maybe we're not addressing. To me, that's the uniqueness part. But yeah, don't send me your PSA, don't ask about can Sage or Carrie come do an event, or can you get tickets to something? So that's normally the request, and I get a lot of requests for Disney tickets.
Right,
And
or
Mickey,
discounts.
and Mickey Mouse appearances.
Yes, Hawaii,
Yes,
right,
yes.
But what we've heard today, there are a couple of key messages, just to summarize this before we go to the audience for some of your comments, but we're hearing specificity, do your research, look at what the unique properties offer, and from your organizational standpoint, look at what you can bring to them. It's the same thing if you think about your personal resume and you were going after a job, you'd want to have the qualifications in order to be considered, but you also want to stand out. So there are a lot of people who have the right qualifications. There are a lot of incredible nonprofits and incredible causes, but why yours specifically? How does it align? How does it move the needle? And perhaps most importantly, how are you collaborating across many different industries, whether it's government agencies, media, leagues, clubs, technology, or any of the number of organizations that are out there? What are you doing to pull it together? So on that note, thank you for all of your incredible collaboration. Thank you for being such good friends. I will tell you, we have gotten to know each other, quite honestly, over French fries at JW Marriott over the last decade, because we do work together, and it is authentic, and we're coming together. And when we're eating those amazing French fries, which they are amazing, by the way, we're also talking, we're collaborating, we're thinking about ways that we can do more and do it better. So thank you. Just a hand for this great panel.